The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Crab cakes and football. That's what Maryland does. You know your movies, that came from Wedding Crashers, which came out 20 years ago today. And might not have been something that you thought about at the time. That, hey, you look like you belong and you walk in a nice suit. And, yeah, why not crash a wedding? Why not check out the hoity-toity weddings and look at all the pretty girls, which is what happened in this movie 20 years ago. Big success. Not as funny as, at least for me, as some people thought it was, but we'll go through that. Home Run Derby, kind of a yawn for me. I don't know about you, but we'll talk about that. Jim Abott did watch the Southpaw documentary, E60, that was done by Jeremy Schaap last night, and the Jim Abott did make an appearance the other day on the Rich Eisen show, so I'm going to play some of that and give you my review of that. There's things to talk about, but we are in the dead of summer. In fact, I guess they still do it this way. Maybe they tape it today and run it next weekend. I forget, but this is usually the time that they record the ESPYs. Like it used to be, and it's not the case anymore because they have, all kinds of events. Like there's a WNBA game tonight. There's NBA Summer League. All that stuff goes on at this time of year. But it used to be that there were only 2 days of the year. Well, I guess 3 days of the year with Christmas, though that changed, and the NFL gobbled that up. But the 2 days of the year, we had no sports, day before the All-Star game and the day after the All-Star game before the teams would get back to work. We had something yesterday, and I'll get to the Home Run Derby. Not overly excited about that. We got the All-Star game tonight, and then tomorrow a lot of other things are going on. I think what baseball is struggling with right now is an identity. And they look at the other sports like basketball. They've got an identity. They've got the audience that they want. Younger men, they want that. Football has everybody. It's like 48% women. I mean, they are the juggernaut. And baseball's trying to figure it out. And Rob Manfred has made his share of mistakes, no question about that. He admitted that selling off these games to Apple TV has not worked out well. And now you got rumblings of a strike. It's not going to happen next year because the collective bargaining agreement will extend through next season. But Barry Zerluga's got a column today saying circle December 2nd, 2026 on your calendar because the day before the collective bargaining agreement between the players and the owners expires, the expectation throughout the sport, he writes, the owners will lock out the players then. That means general managers not only can't be in touch with members of their own teams, they can't be in touch with representatives of free agents. No calls, no texts, no deals, no trades, no business. And what it looks like they're going to try and saddle up again, they've tried to ride this horse before and hasn't worked out, is a salary cap. The Players Association has successfully fought this off. Now, I say successfully in air quotes because it's obviously worked out for players like Shohei Ohtani, who's making $700 million, and Juan Soto, $756, and there's a whole bunch of players over $5. I mean, that's the top end is beyond belief, and the top end of teams is beyond belief. The Dodgers are spending $341 million on players this year. The Mets, $332 million. The Athletics, who are going to be in Vegas but are currently in Sacramento, are spending $77 million, and the Marlins, $67 million. Oh, and look who's in first place at the break. Why, it's the Dodgers and the Mets. And didn't the Dodgers win the World Series last year? Yes, they did. They spent a lot of money. They got a lot of injury. Doesn't matter. They got other players who can fill in. And the haves and the have-nots is probably more pronounced than it's ever been. And I got some experience with this lockout stuff. In 1990, when I was working for Sports News Network and based in New York, I spent a lot of time covering the lockout and learned a lot of very interesting things. And I remember this. There was an owner from a small market team who would talk to anybody who put a microphone in front of him, and his name was Bud Selig. At that time, he was the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers, not yet the commissioner of baseball. And he said, we got to have a salary cap. We got to have a salary cap. Well, here we are 35 years later. We don't have a salary cap. And the union has been willing to sit out long periods of time to make it stay the way it is. 1981, I don't think they went after the salary cap as much as they wanted bigger compensation for free agent signings, which they thought might deter some of those. So that knocked out half the season. We had a brief strike in 1985. And in 1990, we had a strike that knocked out the early part of the season, but they managed to squeeze it in. And then, of course, 1994, you had the World Series knocked out. And they wanted to start the following season with scab players, which would have really been an amazing thing because that would have ended the Cal Ripken streak. Remember, Cal Ripken gets a lot of credit, and maybe deservedly so, for bringing baseball back in 1995 when he broke Lou Gehrig's record. Well, he still needed games going into that season, quite a few games, because he didn't break it until September. And the streak would have ended because he said he was not going to play with the scab players. And ultimately, it was Judge Sonia Sotomayor on the Supreme Court now in a ruling in New York in district court who ruled that the owners were not allowed to use replacement players, and things came back, and they've had a couple of near misses with deadlines approaching, and they got deals done. It does not look like it's going to happen this time. And Barry Zerluga writes, Rob Manfred wants to generate more centralized revenue, which he will attempt to do by packaging local media rights to national outlets. Manfred wants a deadline for free agent signing so prominent players won't be looking for work as spring training begins. As strategy, the players believe ownership will use lowball contract offers, on and on and on. There has to be, a lot of give and take on all of this, and it sounds to me like the players are ready to play hardball, which has been very successful for them in the past. The football players always cave because their careers are short. The baseball players stick together, and they generally win. But I've also said this about the players. The union is supposed to represent the rank and file. I mean, really, does Juan Soto need such great union benefits? No. This is more for the players who will have average or short careers and trying to make as much money as they can. And the thing that you have with a salary cap is also a salary floor. And I would imagine, just using these numbers as an example, that the Dodgers, without paying an enormous amount of luxury tax, and they may find it's worthwhile to do that too, but the Dodgers may not have a payroll of $341 million, but the Marlins won't be allowed to have a payroll as low as $67.6 million. So just, spitballing numbers out here. Let's say the cap is $250, but the floor is $150. So now you got the $100 million in between, which, can make the difference between winning a World Series and not, though we've had some smaller market teams and lower payrolls win. But generally speaking, you got to have big money on the payroll, as much as the Nats did when they won in 2019. So I would think that this is going to happen. And the way baseball is handling things right now, I think they got to get a plan which will have a little bit more strategy with what they got. They seem to be a little bit all over the place. And they've dumped Chris Berman. Berman's old. He's 70 years old. They've given him a contract through 2029 so he can be there when the network celebrates 50 years. Okay, he's sort of a ceremonial person right now. But they tried out Pat McAfee last night, and he's got the sleeveless jersey, which he likes, and he's got the torn jeans, and he's got the cowboy boots and the backward hat, and he's got his buddy with him from his show, and they're going to give you the whole WWE treatment.
It's Pat McAfee, joined by co-host Ty Schmidt.
Hello, beautiful people. It is our honor to introduce the legends that are going to be bombing balls this evening. Let's get to it. First, representing the Washington Nationals, from Rockville, Maryland, a man who has thunder in his hands.
He has 24 homers on the season, and he has so much damn power, he's gonna hit bombs to left field,
Wide,
right field,
wide,
and center field.
Wide. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for James Wood.
Got to admit, it was cool to hear Rockville coming out of my TV set. But, Wood cannot be more low-key. He was just kind of bemused by the whole thing. And whatever happened to baseball where it was batting for the Yankees, the captain, number 2, Derek Jeter. No, we got this. We got the schlock show. Is this really what you want in baseball? Do you really want that? I know this is a manufactured event. I understand that, it has gained in popularity. In fact, when the All-Star Game was in Baltimore in 1993, so what are we going back 32 years? It's hard to imagine this, but the Home Run Derby was held as like part of batting practice on Monday afternoon, and Ken Griffey hit the warehouse. That was a really big deal. But it was taped, and I think they either showed it the next night or the next afternoon. It wasn't anything like this primetime event, which, has everybody freaking out. I was rooting for Wood to win. He had sort of a so-so showing. He batted first. He had 16 home runs, and that wasn't enough to move him along. The winner was Cal Raleigh, and I thought that was kind of cool because I saw Cal Raleigh in person, saw him hit 2 home runs a week ago Friday in Seattle when I was visiting my son. That was a nice thing. And he's really a cool story. He's a switch-hitting catcher. He's never hit this many home runs before. And there's never been a catcher who's led the major leagues in home run. I don't think it's going to happen for him because he'll probably fade in the second half, but he's having a hell of a year. And it came down to this, which is, again, more schlock, more stuff. It just should be about home runs. Cal Raleigh wound up winning this thing essentially by an inch. He needed an inch to get by Brett Rooker, who had 17 home runs, and they both had 17. Could have been a swing off. They didn't do that. They measured, and it came down to less than an inch. So Raleigh moves on. He beat O'Neill Cruz in the semifinals. I didn't know his name for Paul O'Neill. I learned that last night. That was kind of cool. The first name, O'Neill Cruz, big 6'6" shortstop, outfielder, throws it like 100 miles an hour. But anyway, he beat him in the semifinal, 19-13, and then got by Junior Caminero in the finals, hit 19 to start the championship round, and Caminero came up with 15 of them. But even in the post-game interview, which was done by Jeff Passan, and it was really a nice story because baseball is all about fathers and sons. So you had Cal Raleigh hitting, and you had his younger brother catching, and the dad who taught him how to play baseball do the pitching. That's a nice story. What do they do with it? Listen, this is about a 2-minute interview here that Passan does with all 3 members of the family, and they got to schlock it up with WWE stuff at the end. Here's Passan with the Raleigh family.
You did it with your father throwing to you. You did it with your brother behind the plate. What does this mean to you?
It means the world, I could have hit 0 home runs, and I would have had just as much fun, so I just can't believe we won. It's unbelievable.
Todd Raleigh threw a lot of pitches tonight. You've thrown a lot of pitches to your son over his career. How much does this mean to you, and why is this so great for the Raleigh family?
Well, it's just a great accomplishment, and I think that every dad that's ever had a kid, this is what they dreamed about, and as a dad, you kind of dream about it. To see it come true for your son is unbelievable.
Cal, you were saying that T was giving you some advice behind the plate. What was he saying to you, and why was it the thing that helped propel you to this win?
Honestly, he was hyping me up. He was firing me up the whole time. I'd hit one good, and he'd be like, let's go. And I don't know, it just got me going, and I think that's why I got in good spurts during the Derby. And, he was talking, through me to my dad, talking about where he should throw it. So it was a lot of fun. He was really good, and it was an awesome experience.
T, you had the best view in the house behind the plate. What did you see from back there?
Greatness.
The second Seattle Mariner to win the Home Run Derby. The other one, Ken Griffey Jr., gave you a hug. What did he say to you, Cal?
He was just super proud of me. Obviously, really cool to see him there the whole time, and trying to look like him with a backwards hat. So hopefully I made him proud.
Got to strap you up with the hardware. Oh, perfect. And now, in addition to the chain, he gets the belt and the championship trophy. Carl, a lot of hardware for Cal Raleigh tonight.
Yeah, one of these WWE guys, I don't know who he is. He's got this big neck tattoo, and he's got this bleached blonde hair. If you know wrestling, you probably know who he is. The WWE is kind of disgraceful with what's going on with McMahon, Vince McMahon, who may go to jail. I mean, really, is this going to help you with younger viewers? I mean, is this really important for your product? Maybe it is. I'm old. I understand that. But man, I mean, it's just it should be baseball, and it should be, the home run derby. I thought the best one they had was in Boston in 1999. With they brought out Ted Williams on the golf cart, and they had a good home run hitting contest. They've tweaked the rules, and now you have a player moving on because of an inch, and it just doesn't work for me. They somehow or another, they've got to come up with a marketing strategy and figure out who they are. Is baseball going to be the summertime pastime and something that people can sit down and enjoy, smoke a cigar outside and listen on the radio? Or is it going to be in your face with Pat McAfee and the torn jeans and the ripped shoulders and yelling at you, blah, 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 and the WWE belt? What are you going to be? What are you going to be? And somewhere along the line, they got to come up with a marketing strategy, because it's just all over the place. And then for the All-Star game tonight, we'll see. They schlock that up, too, because they mic up the pitcher when he's pitching. I mean, they just have as many gimmicks as they can come up with for an event which, may have seen its time past. It's already gone in football. Basketball has become a joke, and maybe it's time to do away with it in baseball as well. I'll tell you one more thing on the I want to add on the Barry Zerluger column today about the impending strike, which he believes could be coming before the start of the 2027 season, is that football eats up so much of the calendar now that, unlike, say, in 1981, when much of the summer was knocked out for baseball because of the strike, there wasn't football to eat it up. And, further and further, baseball sinks behind football. And if they completely leave the stage in what is their one window to have that stage, the middle of the summer, watch out, because people move on. They find other things to do. All right, coming up in the next hour, I watched the Jim Abott documentary last night on ESPN, and I'll give some of what Abbott said yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show. And Jayden Daniels, top 5 quarterback, number 5 at 5. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. Let's start with the basics. He was born with one hand. The thought of him ever playing baseball at any level was a little far-fetched, though, okay, he could possibly play at the Little League level. He did. Played at the high school level. Really, really good. Played at the college level and won the Sullivan Award as the best amateur athlete in the country. Was a first-round draft pick in Major League Baseball. And he threw a no-hitter for the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. It's a story that defies logic, and Jim Abott did it. And he's now being celebrated in an excellent documentary that was done by my friend Jeremy Schaap on ESPN. I watched it last night, and I'll give you some thoughts on it, plus what Abbott said yesterday about it on the Rich Eisen show. I mean, it's absolutely remarkable, and it's it's a testament to not allowing limits in your life. And sadly, we talked about this last week. Tim Strachan passed away at the age of 49 from cancer. Tim was on his way to being a top college quarterback, one of the top prospects in the country, along with Peyton Manning and Donovan McNabb in the high school class of 1994. And just before his senior year, he dove into a wave to cool off after playing beach volleyball, hit his head on the sand and broke his neck and never walked again. Went on to graduate high school on time with honors, went to the University of Maryland on a football scholarship that they honored. He worked with the team as a kind of an assistant coach, got into broadcasting, did reporting from the sidelines and from the booth on the radio for 22 years, got a law degree from Georgetown, worked for the FCC, motivational speaker, got married, had 3 children. I mean, there are there are limits that you can put around yourself if you want, or you can look at the limits that society wants to put around you and say, no thanks. And that's the story of Jim Abott, highlighted by the no-hitter that he threw on September 4th of 1993. And we'll get to that and much more. But we're still in that phase that I call the four corners, the Phil Ford four corners of football. You got to have something to talk about until the real stuff gets going. The Commanders have their rookies due in on Friday, and then the veterans are due in a week from today. The big question continues to be, okay, how long is it going to go with Terry McLaurin? Now, theoretically, they could say to him, if talks completely break down, okay, well, you're under contract this year. If you want to play, go out and play, and we'll either franchise you at the end of the year or we'll maybe work out a long-term extension over the course of the season, which they could do. Or I think more realistically what he wants is to have some assurance going into training camp that he's got some security after this year and some upfront money. They give you the bonus money and that sort of thing. So the number, it's and this is really what happens when you wait to negotiate deals. The money just keeps going up. Right now, the top of the market is Justin Jefferson. He makes $35 million a year. Behind that, CeeDee Lamb. Is CeeDee Lamb the number 2 receiver in the league? Well, he is salary-wise, and it's because Jerry Jones waited. Had he signed him earlier last year, might have gotten him for less. DK Metcalf, who's now gone to the Steelers from Seattle, $33 million. And now we had yesterday Garrett Wilson of the Jets, who I would say some casual fans have never heard of. You know, he played for a bad team with the Jets. He's 25 years old. It's another thing with Terry. He's 30. But Garrett Wilson got a 4-year, $130 million deal, $90 million guaranteed, and the number for average per season, $32.5 million. That puts him at number 5, just ahead of A.J. Brown, who's at 32, and we've seen what A.J. Brown has done to the Washington secondary over the last few years. Terry is more valuable to Washington than anybody else because of Jayden Daniels, but is he worth top 5 money? How long do you guarantee it? And you probably have to have some off-ramps here because you're going to have to sign Jayden Daniels in 2 years. He's got, of course, he has the rookie deal, which is 4 years, and then you have the option year, which they would certainly pick up if they don't have a deal done. Well, what would happen is after next year, so you got two more years of serenity with him, really. You got this year and next year. After year 3, you look at year 5, you automatically pick up the 5th-year option, assuming there's no, cliff drop like RG3. Assuming he's still at this level, and then you try and work out a long-term deal, which he's going to be. The way things are going, it's certainly not unreasonable to think he's going to get $70 to $75 million a year if he's that good, and he looks that good. There was a list that was put together by Jeremy Schaap. It was put together by Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. He's a reporter. And he talked to scouts, executives, and coaches. And the list is at 1. I don't think anybody would argue with Patrick Mahomes, 2-time MVP, 3-time Super Bowl champ. Then you got the MVP from last year, Josh Allen, at 2. Bengals star Joe Burrow at 3. I have no argument with that. I binge-watched the quarterback series on season 2 on Netflix over the weekend. Burrow really impressive. Their defense was a disgrace last year, and he still almost got him into the playoffs. So I got no issue with Joe Burrow at number 2. And then Lamar Jackson, who's won 2 MVPs. And what do you know, as discussed yesterday on ESPN by Jeremy Fowler, by the crew that included Damian Woody and also Dan Orlovsky. This is how Peter Schrager running the show. This is how they looked at the ranking for Jayden Daniels.
Jayden Daniels came in at number 5, the 5th best quarterback in the entire NFL. This isn't coming from fans. This isn't coming from Commanders bloggers. This is coming from executives, coaches, and scouts. Yeah. Jeremy, why are NFL people so over the moon on the potential of Jayden Daniels?
Peter, because what he did last year was crazy. I heard the same line from several coordinators that prepared for Daniels. They said he single-handedly brought a franchise that is one of the worst in the NFL, that has one legitimate, accomplished wide receiver, a 34-year-old tight end, and an average at best offensive line, and took him to the NFC Championship game in year one. That is as crazy as it sounds, what he did. So people are not forecasting a year two dip for him. They are forecasting more success, more numbers, and more knocking of the door of those four other quarterbacks we just talked about.
Damian Woody, do you agree with Jayden Daniels, a second-year quarterback already as the fifth best and the top quarterback in the NFC?
You're damn right I do.
Let's go.
Damn right I do. Listen, I grew up a Washington fan. I've seen this organization inept for over 2 decades. That young man steps foot in the building, and that group was one game away from the Super Bowl. That is not a fluke, my friend. It is not a fluke. This man is uber talented. Not only is he a great athlete, he's calm, he's collected, he processes well. He's accurate. He plays with timing and rhythm. He has all those things. And as this franchise continues to build this thing out, man, listen, next year we could be talking about a guy in the top 3.
Be cautious.
Okay, I was going to say, we have to have some sobering thought here.
Be cautious.
Right.
And so I think it's widely known no one has been the bigger Jayden Daniels fan than I
Is it widely known?
Okay, widely known. But let me just okay, so 2 years ago, CJ had a remarkable rookie season. And everyone's like, CJ's the next Joe Burrow type of thing. And there's a lot of reasons why the season wasn't as stellar in totality. Last year, Jayden was absolutely insane. 6 wins trailing in the fourth quarter. That's not that common. You can't bank on that year after year after year. The best fourth down team in football outside of Philadelphia. I think they were like 23 of 28 on fourth downs. Something that's more than likely just not that common. So 2 years ago, it was third down for CJ. He was so ridiculous on third down that it covered up a lot of flaws. He was so ridiculous last year, Jayden Daniels, in the fourth quarter and on fourth down, that I do think it covered up a little bit of some of the deficiencies or flaws. And so if that's not corrected, some of those earlier down things as an offense, as a team, you're not banking on going 80+% on fourth down again. So yes, the 5th ranking, absolutely warranted, but there is a reality where they are going to have to play better football to make sure that he doesn't always have to put on the hero cape or do some of the jaw-dropping stuff to pull some of those last-second wins out. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, look, just as all these games at the end went their way, some of them may not. We saw that with Burrow last year. We watched the quarterback series on Netflix. You'll see that. So there is that step back possibility. I would say that a good season this year would be 10 wins. They won 12 last year, but they were under the radar. They're on national TV all the time. The schedule is tougher. They were playing a last place schedule last year. Now it's a first place schedule. A lot of different things. And, he's top 5 going into the season. Now, there's 2 things. One, defensive coordinators got a lot more time to look at a season's worth of tape on him and figure out ways that they can stop him, what his flaws are. On the other hand, he's a tape nerd. He's a guy that's watching his own flaws, watching the way they defended him, and making his own adjustments. So we'll see. Now, one of the coordinators that Fowler talked to said he would be very, very surprised if Daniels took a step back last year, and if he just stays where he is, he's going to be possibly top 3. That's it. Now, we have something else developing here, a developing situation, and I'm going to have to keep an eye on Twitter on this, but John Keim on his podcast today said that Terry McLaurin is going to be speaking to the media after his Eastern Automotive shoot this morning. I don't know what time that wraps up. I'd imagine, like 11 o'clock or so. Here's my just thumbnail look at this. I have no other information than what I just read there, that Terry McLaurin is going to talk to the media after he does his shoot for a car commercial today. This is not the team making an announcement in Ashburn. This is, to me, a player who's about to air some grievances. And he's built up enough goodwill equity here that this is going to come off very much in his favor, no matter how it goes. I think he's going to list his accomplishments. I think he's been very good about this. He's never, ever complained about the multiple quarterbacks he's had until, this last year, where finally went through a full season with a competent quarterback. All the ones that he's had to prop up and say, he's really pretty good. No, most of what's been here is dreck, absolute dreck, since Terry McLaurin joined the team in 2019 as a third-round pick. So this is going to be. This doesn't usually happen. Let's put it that way. Usually, when this does happen, and I've seen it done. I remember going back to the late '70s when George Gervin was with the San Antonio Spurs, didn't like his contract, and George had a news conference comparing himself with other players. And, San Antonio was a small market team. I don't even know if the NBA had a salary cap in place at that point. This would have been 79 or 80. Maybe it just came in. But he made his case. And then we've had others who've come along and said, it's not fair the way I'm being treated. And I think Terry is finally going to cash in that chip. All the wonderful things that he said at news conferences, the leadership that he's shown, the ability to support other teammates, and the incredible chemistry that he developed in his first season playing with Jayden Daniels, where he set a record with 13 touchdown catches. He had a career year, as he should have, because he had a real quarterback and a much better team than he'd been playing with. And I think this might be the opportunity for, and I don't know anything about what he's going to say. I just know that what John has reported is he's going to talk to the media after he finishes up his car commercial shoot today, Eastern Motors. That's it. But that's an odd place to have it, one. And number two, that sounds like he's going to put a little pressure on him, because we are 1 week out. The veterans are due in 1 week from today. And I know the team would like him to be there. He would like to be there. But he's not going to be pressured into a bargain basement deal. So I'm sure the team doesn't want it to go this way. I'm sure that at least this time around, they have people who know what they're doing. Adam Peters knows what he's doing. Dan Quinn knows what he's doing. They have a new team president now. I don't know how much he gets involved with team salaries and things like that. Mark Klaus, who used to run Campbell's Soup. But I look at this and I say this is getting into like third rail territory. This could be somewhat as explosive as it would get with Terry McLaurin, because he's a very classy guy. But that kind of comes out of nowhere for me. So I'll keep an eye on Twitter to see what some of the comments are from Terry McLaurin today as he talks to me. It's 10:15 now. I'd imagine could happen before the show wraps up at 11 o'clock. If it does, we'll pass some things along on that. Coming up, Jim Abott on the documentary that was done the other night on him on E60 called Southpaw, how his no-hitter unfolded on September 4th of 1993, and more. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
All right, so we're in the documentary period now. We have the All-Star game tonight, but this is generally the time of the year that they roll out a lot of these things because, other than baseball, there isn't a lot to watch. So this was very well done the other night. It was... I got to get the rest of it. I should have extended the taping, so I missed the last few minutes of it. But it's very moving, and it's very well done. It's about an hour and a half, and it was done by Jeremy Schaap. It's called Southpaw, and it's about Jim Abott. Now, you got to think about the math here. Jim Abott, as you probably know, was born with a very underdeveloped right hand. He's got, like, part of a finger sticking out, but that's about it. They tried a prosthesis when he was younger. That didn't work. He didn't like it, and he's amazingly adapted to using his left hand to the point where he became a premier major league pitcher and threw a no-hitter at Yankee Stadium. Pretty damn good. But the numbers are this, and his parents got married when they were young. Who knows if that had anything to do with this or not, but they say it's just a thing that happens in birth. It's like, you plant a seed in the ground and every plant doesn't look the same. In this particular case, his hand didn't develop. And it happens, they said, in about 1 in every 250,000 births. So, an able-bodied young man. The chances that he gets to the major leagues as a pitcher, just pitches in one game, have got to be 1 in however many million. Someone who is one of 250,000 people born every year who gets to not only pitch in the major leagues but throws a no-hitter at Yankee Stadium, the odds have got to be astronomical on that. And Jim Abott did it. He grew up in Flint, Michigan, kind of a hard scrabble town where people have to earn their way. And, the way to fit in is sports. And he had a tough time fitting in, as you would imagine. He was different than the other kids. It wasn't until the second grade that he learned how to tie his shoes, only because a teacher helped him to do it. And that gave him some independence. But he knew everybody was staring at him. And the way to fit in was to do it in sports. But every time he was fitting in, and especially succeeding, he was the one-handed pitcher who was succeeding. He just wanted to be the pitcher who was succeeding, and ultimately that happened. I'll get to more on that. But he did actually hit in the major leagues. He pitched most of his career for the Angels and the Yankees in the American League, but he did pitch for the Brewers. And as he talked to Rich Eisen about the documentary, which again is called Southpaw, he talked about the hits that he had as a Brewer.
I always fancied myself a pretty good hitter from high school on, and none of my coaches seemed to agree. I did end up playing for the Brewers at the end of my career and got 2 base hits in the big leagues, both off of John Lieber.
Nice.
One in Wrigley Field, which is another 2-hour documentary we can talk about. But I loved hitting. The only thing I really know about hitting is that it's hard to do. I faced Greg Maddux in the big leagues one time, and every pitch seemed to be coming out of the same exact hand location, and every pitch was just a little bit different. So it's really hard. Even what you would classify as an average MLB pitcher is incredible. The talent level is amazing. The time you have, the lack of time you have to react is insane.
I'm going to take a stab at this. Were Larkin and Sabo teammates of yours at any point in time at Michigan, or you didn't overlap?
Larkin would have been a senior when I was a freshman.
Okay.
And he went pro with the Reds, and I believe that's the same thing for Sabo and Larkin after that. But they had some great teams just before I got there.
No doubt. Jim Abott here on the Rich Eisen Show. Before I let you go, Jim, what do you want people to know about your story? Obviously, there's this beautiful film that Jeremy Schaap put all of his heart and soul into, which means it's beautiful and it's a heck of a story. But I'll just give you the last word here on what you want people to know, Jim Abott.
And Mike Farrell directed it and edited it, and I tip my cap to them. I just want them to know, Rich, whether it's me pitching or you doing your show or whatever it is that you might be doing, going about your job, going about your passion, raising a family, there's people watching. And there's people seeing how you go about that. And there's people that you can make an impact with by going just a little above and beyond. And this story talks a lot about the kids and the families that we worked with the Yankees, with the Angels throughout my career, that I didn't think it was that big a deal to meet with them in the corridors of these stadiums. And yet, you see the things that they're doing now, doctors and lawyers and MMA fighters and football players, Shaquem Griffin. It's an amazing, impactful thing to know that you can make that kind of difference in somebody's life.
And that is a big part of the documentary. It's interspersed with the unfolding of the no-hitter and the way they film it. It's really cool. They got Jeremy Schaap, and they have Abbott sitting in the right field stands at the new Yankee Stadium. This was at the old Yankee Stadium in 1994, and they're watching the game on the big screen, and then they go back on his backstory back and forth. And when he was coming up with the Angels, he was a curiosity. Oh my God, he's got one hand, and kids were showing up with their parents, and they had similar afflictions, and he would talk to them about life and how he was able to navigate it and so forth and so on. I mean, and then the letters. I defy you not to cry when you see him read these letters that were sent to him, and how he had inspired them, and how they had never seen anybody do what he was doing with what they were dealing with in life, and they felt like they could go on and do anything. It's just really Amazing. When they finally show the end of the no-hitter, you get to see the celebration. Probably the biggest defensive play was made by Wade Boggs. He had to go down on one knee, make a big play at third base to keep the no-hitter alive. Almost every no-hitter includes one spectacular defensive play, and he had it. And this was Abbott on a guy who at that point, had already a great career. He'd played with the Boston Red Sox for a long time and now was a part of the Yankees, and what it meant to him, what it meant to Jim Abott to have Boggs as a teammate.
Wade Boggs was a tremendous teammate. And what I loved about Boggsy, and, there's a lot of funny stories about Wade, and he'll even tell them himself. He loved and had a deep appreciation for the history of the game, for the Red Sox, for the Yankees. He took it very, very seriously. Every at-bat, he took his fielding, the conditioning of the field. And after that no-hitter, there was a gleam in his eyes. I picked up on it. He was like, he was more excited than I was about just the history of what was going on. And I'll never forget that reaction.
Yeah. And I'm just, again, wondering, you mentioned how, you get shelled in the start before. It makes sense, too, Jim. I mean, Lofton, Carlos Baerga, Albert Bell, Manny Ramirez, Jim Thome in the lineup on the day you threw that no-hitter against those guys. That's a hell of a lineup. I mean, and I'm wondering if any memories of the game about pitching to these guys and what the stresses it might have put on you while you were doing this thing.
Yeah. In doing the film with Jeremy Schaap, who's the interviewer and reporter, he's so great. He's
the best, man. No doubt.
Oh, my God. He's encyclopedic with his knowledge of baseball. And I think he added up all the home runs in that lineup, and it was some extraordinary amount that you would probably rank up there with a lot of different teams. But what I remember, Rich, is I remember getting to the ballpark early, and Matty Noakes, like you mentioned, former Tiger, he wasn't our primary catcher, so he was in the lineup for a day game. Still a great ball player, and he showed up with the Indians lineup card, and we were going over all their strengths, Lofton's speed and Baerga's, average, and Bell's power, and Manny Ramirez just got called up to that team. And finally, Matty just threw the lineup card on the table and said, you know what? I don't care about what they do. Let's get back to what you do best. Let's mix it up a little bit. Let's throw a few more breaking balls. But for the most part, you see my mitt and you throw it through my mitt. Let's trust it. And that was the game plan. I loved Yankee Stadium. The national anthem played. I wiped off the pitching rubber and just set out on this course that would honestly change my life.
When did you realize that this could be happening?
I didn't really think about it much until after the sixth inning was over. I was sitting in the dugout, and, everybody knows baseball's dumb superstition. The teammates get a little bit quieter in the dugout. There's an acknowledgement kind of what's going on. But I knew how fickle something like this is. And I had a no-hitter a few weeks before that in the eighth inning against the White Sox. I jammed Bo Jackson with a good pitch, and he hit it out to center field for a single. So I knew the fates kind of have to be lined up. And that was helpful, to be honest, because it was like there was this letting go of result. It's just about making good pitches and just being out there and enjoying the moment. And that ninth inning, I felt it in every cell of my body, the breathing, the knees, the heart, everything. It was just unbelievable.
You did, huh? I love that. What did you say? Letting go of the result. That's pretty neat, man. That's some good sports psychology right there, Jim. You're just having to execute in the ninth inning. And again, Baerga being the last out too, man. I mean, that's something, Jim.
Yeah.
You
have to. I mean, it's like golf in that way. You can hit a good shot and things can go awry easily. And so you have to settle yourself into making a good swing. Not that I have any business talking about golf mindset, but that's what pitching is. It's letting go of result and making the highest quality pitch that you possibly can and doing it over and over again and letting things fall where they may. And in that day, for sure, there was a certain peacefulness in that approach.
And hardly peacefulness when the last pitch was thrown.
And the ground ball to short. Velarde. He did it. He did it. No hitter for Jim Abott. Jim Abott throws a no-hitter and shuts out the Cleveland Indians 4-0.
And the 22nd anniversary of my bar mitzvah. No mention of that. Hey, Dwayne Stats. Last part, this is Abbott talking to Rich Eisen yesterday. Don Mattingly stories, George Steinbrenner stories. I'll have a follow-up on what he says about Steinbrenner. But Mattingly was, at that point in his career, really struggling along. I think the last healthy year he had was maybe 1991. So this is 94. It's the last year of his career, but he's out there and he's given it everything he has. And this is Abbott on what it meant to have Mattingly as a teammate.
I love Donnie Mattingly, and I loved him more after being a teammate with him. We showed up to spring training. It was my first spring training with the Yankees. And we're going through the mundane, boring pitchers fielding practice on the backfield in Fort Lauderdale. The position players don't even have to be in spring training yet. And out walks Donnie Mattingly, full uniform, has his glove. He walks out to this backfield and he jumps into the PFP most boring drill just because he wanted to get a feel for all the pitchers on the team and what, how they covered first base and their speed getting over there. And he wanted them to get a feel for the way he liked to communicate. And that's just who Donnie was. I mean, you can take him out of Evansville, but you can't take Evansville out of the boy. And he was cool as could be. He could wear a sport coat with turtles on it and a turquoise bracelet. And you'd go, yep, that works, Donnie. That's perfect.
Right. I feel the same way. And then, that was 94, I think is the year you're talking about, your first year of spring training with the Yankees, a year after your no-hitter. And that, Mattingly was breaking down physically, unfortunately. And he still finished top 20 in the MVP voting that year with his umpteenth gold glove of his career. And it's just a killer to me that the Yankees just went on that dynastic run the year after he left. It still hurts me as a person.
Anyone deserved it. He did. And, even when he was hurt, even if he had a pulled rib cage muscle or something, he would still take batting practice. He wouldn't swing, but he would watch pitches come in to stay sharp. And he could move around the Yankee clubhouse from, the group of relief pitchers to the starting pitchers to the position players. And he moved effortlessly and seamlessly through all those different clicks. He was the captain for a reason. And, he was Derek Jeter before Derek Jeter.
Last one for you in terms of memory lane for this. You mentioned earlier, Jim, that you heard rumblings about some disappointment within Yankee management after you got shelled by Cleveland. That sounds like that could come from a certain shipbuilder from the city of Cleveland who did not like losing, period, let alone to the hometown team from Cleveland, and George M. Steinbrenner III, the owner of the New York Yankees. Would I be accurate in saying some of those rumblings came from that particular office of the Yankees, Jim?
Would be very accurate.
Yep, but I'm sure he might have been the first one after you threw that no-hitter in Yankee Stadium against Cleveland. Whatever he might have been upset about went out the window right there. What was he like after you throwing that no-hitter, Jim?
Rich, he was amazing. There was a bottle of champagne, a magnum of champagne in my locker. I got a beautiful engraved cigar box made for the Yankee organization. And I went to Yankee Stadium last week. I threw out the first pitch. I went in the booth with Paul O'Neill and Michael Kay and Susan Wallman, all the group. And they just rolled out the red carpet. And I was struck, honestly, for all the talk of the tumultuousness of the Yankee organization. There were so many friends in the front office, in security, in every role who were still there. And it was emotional. There was a lot of hugs and just the way, their welcome, their generosity with this film has been absolutely heartwarming to me. It means a lot.
Do you still have stuff from that day? What do you got?
Oh,
what do you have?
Yeah, I have my favorite memorabilia. I got to the ballpark the next day. and the grounds crew. Frankie was, I forget, I don't have his last name right now, but Frankie was the leader of the grounds crew. And if people don't know, Frankie was also missing a hand like I am. And when I got to the ballpark the next morning, slight headache, they called, the grounds crew called me on the field, and they dug out the pitching rubber out of the mound, and they had every player on the Yankees sign it. And
Wow.
Yeah, for people who don't know, the pitching rubber is a big hunk of rubber and metal, and it's not easy to get out of the ground. And they pulled it out. They had everybody sign it, and we took a picture with it, and it sits in my office to this day. It's my proudest piece of memorabilia from my career.
So that's Jim Abott. Now, the postscript on George Steinbrenner letting his feelings be known that that he was not happy with his performance. Now, the year before, the Yankees had traded some pretty good players and prospects. J.T. Snow, who became a heck of a player, they traded him to the Angels to get Jim Abott and thought he would be a key piece to their pitching staff. And he had a disappointing year in 1992, and things were not going that well in 1993. And Jack Curry of the New York Times wrote a column saying that he believed that certain players had to stop underachieving and had named Jim Abott. Now, a big part of this feature, this documentary, is that Jim Abott spends most of his life wanting people to recognize him for what he accomplished, not for what he accomplished as a one-handed pitcher. And so he goes to Jack Curry and he says, "Really? You're going to call me an underachiever?" And he was mad about it. And Curry said, "Look, you're the one who keeps telling people that you want to be regarded as a pitcher, not a one-handed pitcher. And so I'm giving you exactly the kind of treatment that you want." And Jim Abott said, "You know what? I thought about that." And I said, "He's 100% right." And he fully apologized. And that may have been also part of the impetus of throwing that no-hitter on September 4th of 1993. It's really good. It's a good show. Jeremy Schaap does a great job with it, and Jim Abott is really a compelling story. I remember seeing him pitch for the Angels at Yankee Stadium, which would have been 1990, I guess. And just think about this: you're a left-handed pitcher, so you start with the glove on your stump as you throw it, and then in like one motion, as the ball leaves your hand, you got to slip the glove onto your left hand from the stump and be ready for a screaming liner back at you. And he was really good at fielding his position too. And then once you catch it, you got to get the glove off and the ball out and throw it to first base or wherever you have to throw it as quickly as possible. Oh, amazing. Just absolutely amazing. And I would highly recommend seeing it. It's called Southpaw. It premiered the other night on ESPN, and it's the Jim Abott story. All right, couple of interesting things going on at once with the Washington Commanders. At some point this morning, could happen next few minutes, hour, whatever, we're supposed to hear from Terry McLaurin after he finishes his photo shoot or commercial shoot for Eastern Motors. He's due to talk to the media. We're 1 week out from the veterans being expected to report for training camp, and he has not agreed to a contract extension beyond this year. This is not something that's being done in Ashburn, that's being done at the Eastern Motors film shoot or commercial shoot. And I imagine it's going to be him saying, "Hey, let's look what I've done for this team, and we're not getting anywhere." Maybe, trying to turn up the heat on him. In the meantime, and this has just been announced in the last few minutes, the team is going to retire Ark Monk's number 81. Ark Monk is, if he's not the best receiver who ever played for the Redskins, it's a close second. I would take Charlie Taylor myself, but it's not far behind on Ark Monk, who did break Steve Largent's receiving record while playing for the Redskins in 1992, but did not return to the team in 1993, I believe. Yeah, 1993. Richie Pettibone didn't want to keep him around. The difference in salary was very, very small. He wound up going to the Jets, where he broke the record for most consecutive games with at least one catch. He could have done that here. He wound up doing that with the Jets, and he even played a few games with the Eagles before he called it a career. And it's kind of sad that he wasn't able to play his whole career in Washington, but he was beloved. And he went in the Hall of Fame the same day that Darrell Green did. I mean, who's more popular than Darrell Green? 20 years with the Redskins, and he got a great ovation. But it's considered to be, to this day, I believe, it's considered to be the longest standing ovation in the history of the Hall of Fame. And Art Monk got something like 4.5 minutes before he was able to speak. And he didn't really like to speak much. That was another thing. He didn't talk to the media very much. He was very introverted, very kind of shy, kept to himself. And he would talk from time to time. But, the team is doing the right thing now. They're retiring numbers one by one. They got Sonny. They got Darrell Green last year. They're going to do Art Monk this year, I would imagine. John Riggins isn't too far behind down the road. They got to get to Charlie Taylor. I hope they're not overlooking Charlie Taylor, because 42 has to be retired. And another one which makes for an interesting case, actually two of them, because they're not Hall of Famers. Joe Theismann has been taken out of circulation. He's not in the Hall of Fame, probably won't be in the Hall of Fame, but he is a former MVP and did lead them to their first Super Bowl championship. I'd imagine 7 gets retired. And then Larry Brown, 43. He may never make the Hall of Fame, but he was kind of the heart and soul of those offenses during the 1970s and was a former league MVP. He was the MVP of the league in 1972. So I would expect those to get retired. But here you have the top receiver on the team right now, Terry McLaurin, maybe the most beloved player on the team, maybe 1A with Jayden Daniels, key to the development of Jayden Daniels. And he's going to be airing some grievances. At the same time, the team is saying, no, look over here. We're going to honor Art Monk, and they're going to do it Week 9 against Seattle. So they'll be wearing those Super Bowl era uniforms, which I would think would become the official uniform of the team by the time we get to the 2026 season. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. They use them 3 times this year. But that was announced by the team today that Art Monk's 81 is going to be retired. That'll be Week 9 against Seattle. That's a Sunday night game. And was it a Sunday night game or a Monday night? It might have been a Monday night game against Denver when he broke the Steve Largent all-time receiving record in 1992. Anyway, that's it for me. Bram's still off, so I will see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.